Now on to the ladies' draw, and Mikuru Suzuki back bidding for a third consecutive women's world title. Will we be talking about Mikuru as a three-time world champion this time in 2 weeks?
Well, don't write her off. It's very difficult to judge what Mikuru's form is at the moment because it has been a while since we've seen her. But obviously, she is in live league action this week, which should give us a bit of an indication, which is very good timing, of course, and really good preparation for that. I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. I think it was probably a surprise last year that she wasn't more heavily involved at the business end of events in the PDC Women's Series. It was all about all the talk on social media, and quite rightly, of course, was the big Lisa versus Fallon debate, which we're not getting into here, Alex. I think that's enough has been said about
Who's your favourite? Come on, you've got to have a favourite.
Oh, no, don't make me. Don't go there. But yeah, I mean, it'll be close for Mikuru, absolutely. Very talented player. However, I would say the final could be Bo Greaves versus Rhiannon O'Sullivan. Now, obviously this will be played back and we can all have a good laugh at my expense when this doesn't materialise. But obviously Bo Greaves is someone who has suffered terribly with dartitis. She's now appears, touch wood, to have come through that and is now playing some of the best darts that we've ever seen her play. So, obviously did very well at County at the weekend, and it just appears to be coming into form at the right time. And she's got a very good management stable behind her. She has the support. Everyone seems to sort of forgotten about it. A couple of years ago, everyone was saying Bo Greaves, and now, because of that dartitis, she's sort of almost gone under the radar, which is just ridiculous, really. And Rhiannon Sullivan, who did come through the qualifier that I was at, lest we forget, and very talented, played County the weekend, which I went to see London versus Glamorgan at the weekend, and obviously she was one joint player of the match in that particular instance. So yeah, I mean, I think that those two, looking at the draws, could well come through. This will haunt me, I'm sure it will. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I don't think there is a market at the moment for the women's draw as far as the bookmakers, but you would imagine that Mikuru Suzuki will be right up there among the favourites. And you think back to 2019 when she won this title for the first time, and she was one of the qualifiers. She did what Rhiannon O'Sullivan did. She won through the playoffs, the qualifiers, to get through to play at Lakeside for the first time. And back then, I think this was maybe before she qualified, people were offering 50-1 for her to win a title. I think that was one of Burton's best ever tips on this show, was to get on Mikuru Suzuki back then. And of course, she went on to win the title at Lakeside, defended it at the O2. But it's been a long time since then, over 2 years since beating Lisa Ashton in the final to make it back to back. Like you, though, I think one of my big fears coming into this tournament was that lack of match practice. And as you point out, Mikuru will be playing in the online league this week, which is going to be I think that's going to be a huge help for her for a few reasons, actually. Of course, getting that match practice in against some high level opposition on camera as well. It's going to be on streamed on the YouTube channel, as it always is. And also, she's going to be here in the UK maybe a bit earlier than she would have been if she hadn't been playing in the online league. Her first game's going to be on Sunday in this tournament. Would she have travelled on this Monday when we're recording 6 days before if she didn't have this online league to play in? Perhaps not. So I think preparation-wise, to get rid of any jet lag, get used to that time difference, I think is going to be pretty good for her preparation. So for me, I think that side of things, she's got it covered. But then you look at the players that she's going to be up against, and Laura Turner's probably one of the hardest draws she could have got in the first round. Then Eileen de Graaf, if she gets past Laura, that's another tough one. And then, as you say, Bo Greaves in the quarterfinals is the seed that she could come up against. And all three of those games are the best of three sets. It is a very short race in those early rounds. So for me, I'm looking at it that if Mikuru can get through those three games, then you get into the semi-finals, which is extended to best of five, the final best of seven. I think that's when we see her really go through the gears, and she will be match sharp by then. So for me, I think if she is going to lose in this tournament, it is going to be early on. It is going to be in one of the first three rounds. I think if she gets to that final weekend, I think she will go all the way. I think she'll get the job done, and I think she will become a a three-time world champion, she'll complete the three-peat. But looking at the bottom side of the draw quickly, and there's probably a few more unknown names in there. You've got, I think, 6 debutantes in that first round at the bottom of the draw, but you've also got some seeds in there. Corrine Hammond, of course, is the second seed, replacing Fallon Sherrick, who pulled out of it. Maria O'Brien, again, another one that we know is capable on her day of doing some damage. She's pushed Mikuru close before. Anka Zylstra, we've not seen too much of her on the big stage, but she's coming in as the third seed, so she's got a lot of match practice behind her on the WDF tour. And of course, Kirsty Hutchinson, who we know well, she had that great game with Lisa Ashton on the women's series recently, so she'll probably be coming into this in some good form and with plenty of confidence. So there's some tough hurdles in that bottom half of the draw, but for me, back to Mikuru, I think if she can get to the semi-finals, I think she does go all the way.
Now, like the men's, of course, it is an expanded field in the women's draw from 16 to 24. I mean, what do you make of that? And which of the first round ties do you think we should be looking out for?
I was going to touch on this, actually. I think the ladies' draw going from 16 to 24 players is probably going to have more of an impact than the men's going from 40 to 48. And the reason I say that is because the men's, they've been used to having the prelim game, if you like, the last 40 game in the BDO World Championship. Of course, some of those players be coming in straight through to that last 32, whereas now you've got all of those players are going to be in that first round trying to get through to play one of the seeds. But I think you look at the ladies' draw, and that's something that we've not had before. In previous years, you've had 8 players, you've had 16 players, and they've all started in the first round, whereas this time you've got, as I mentioned, a lot of the debutantes all going to be playing in that first round. They're going to get a taste of the stage. They're going to get a taste of what it's like to play at Lakeside, and that's before all the seeds come in. So we could potentially have a few shocks in that second round, especially with the format as well. Best of 3 sets. It is such a cutthroat format for this tournament. So that's going to be something interesting to follow, is how many of those unseeded players can pull off the shock and knock out the seed. But looking at the first round draw, there's a few games that I'll pick out, and one of them involves one of our guests on the show, Tori Kewish, going up against Lorraine Hyde. And as we mentioned in our chat, they are good friends. They got to know each other well on the circuit, and as the draw came out, they drew each other. So that's going to be one to watch, to see how those two go up against each other. And hopefully you'd imagine that they'll play with a bit of freedom. They're going up against their friend. There won't be too much tension on the stage. They can try and produce their best starts on that stage. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. And of course, the winner of that will play the top seed Dita Hedman. And the other game I'll give a mention to, and it's probably a game that's not jumped off the page because they're 2 players that are going to be making their debut. But I was looking at the rankings earlier. You've got the current world number 5 in the WDF, Suzanne Smith, against the current world number 8 in the WDF, Jo Clements. And these are 2 players that I personally don't know too much about. I was having a little look at their records over the last 12 months, and you've got Suzanne Smith, who has had some very deep runs in the last 12 months. She's made 3 semi-finals. She's made a final. She's made 7 quarterfinals on top of that as well. And then you look to Jo Clements. She won the Slovak Open in February, only last month. And she's also made 3 semi-finals and 2 quarterfinals. And this is against a lot of the players that are in this field for this tournament. So that's for the right to play Kirsty Hutchinson in the second round. But 2 players that I personally don't know too much about. But looking at how the tour's gone over the last 12 months, they've got a bit of pedigree behind them. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those 2 adjust to playing on the big stage.
I think that's a repeat, actually, of the Slovak Open final, which is quite something, isn't it? To then draw each other again. And Jo Clemens won that 5-2 on that occasion. So, yeah, that would be an interesting one to see. And I think, obviously, whoever wins out of Laura Turner and Mikuru Suzuki, they've then got Eileen de Graaf in the last 16, which is, definitely does jump off the page regardless of who wins that opening contest.